Hey there, you're watching Miss Mur, a channel where you can get your low and high profile murder mystery crimes in under 15 minutes. This is a horrific case of a triple murder and suicide in a rural area in northern Ontario, Canada. So let's start off with Ulla Thurett. She was a 55-year-old nurse born in Canada in 1962. She was vibrant and full of life, and in the 80s she met an American man from Michigan. They would fall in love and get married. Ulla would move to Michigan with her new husband, and they would go on to have 3 boys, Thomas, Paul, and Hans, who they would raise in Michigan. Ulla's parents had a large piece of land where they had built a home in the rural area of Burk's Falls, Ontario. Her and the boys, along with her husband, would often visit in the summer. It was a piece of property that her parents had had since the 70s, so the family was pretty familiar with the area. Now let's talk about Mark Jones. He was a 58-year-old man living in Burk's Falls at the time of the murders. Mark and Ulla's brother Peter had met in college in Toronto and become close friends over the years, sharing their love for fishing and hunting. Mark, Peter, and a few other buddies would gather a few times a year at Peter and Ulla's parents' place for a boys' weekend of hunting and fishing. Mark would drift apart from the group, but years later would purchase a home in Burk's Falls. Mark would eventually stop by her parents' place, reconnecting after years of not seeing them. Peter had died, so Ulla's parents were grateful that Mark was coming around and helping out with the house and the property. In 2014, Ulla would make the decision to move back to Canada with her husband and the boys to help her aging parents out with the farm. Her marriage wasn't doing so good, and soon after moving to Canada, her and her husband got a divorce, and he moved back to Michigan. Ulla's sons, Thomas and Hans, would eventually move away from the farm for work, but would come back frequently. Paul stayed in Burk's Falls with his mother and grandparents. Ulla and Mark had known each other from over the years, and she would also appreciate the help that he would offer around the farm, and a newly divorced Ulla would start seeing Mark. This relationship would be short-lived when Ulla would realize they weren't a match. Mark didn't take this too well, and she would start to find unsettling letters in her mailbox. She would try to avoid him in town while getting gas or groceries, but would often be unsuccessful, finding herself in embarrassing situations where he would be yelling at her, calling her absurd names. She would later divulge to numerous people that Mark had sexually assaulted her and forced her to perform oral sex on him. In the summer of 2016, Ulla's father would die, and she would start to feel unsettled not having a male presence in the house. She had been told multiple times to report the sexual assault to police, and in September 2017, she finally did. The police would be curious as to why it took her so long to report the assault, and wouldn't take it so seriously. One night, Ulla, Paul, and Ulla's mother Raya had returned from grocery shopping to find Mark sitting in their kitchen in the dark. Ulla and Mark had exchanged some words, and he calmly left that night. Mark had recently confided in a friend that he had been diagnosed with dementia. Ulla was feeling overwhelmed, and in January 2018, she would check herself into the hospital for 2 weeks, claiming that she was having a mental breakdown. On Friday, February 23, 2018, Paul's girlfriend, 29-year-old Julia Conway, would pull into the family farm after her shift at work. It was 7:30 at night when she would walk into an unlocked door of a dark, quiet house, with only the sounds of the family chihuahua barking. As Julia made her way to the dog, she would notice her boyfriend Paul lying on the floor, shot dead. As she headed upstairs, she would find Ulla and Raya in the same condition. As she made her way out of the house to call 911, she noticed a man slumped over in the chairs, but couldn't make out who it was. Julia would hide in the house while she was on the phone with the 911 operator, waiting for the police to arrive to this gruesome scene. Ulla Thurett, Paul Thurett, and Raya Turen were all pronounced dead that night. All 3 shot dead. And the man slumped over on the chair would be Mark Jones, who shot himself after committing these murders. Ulla's remaining sons would be angered that she had made reports to the police and nothing had been done, and that someone that was diagnosed with dementia and had their driver's license taken away would still be able to carry a gun license, not to mention also had a sexual assault report. The property was soon sold off, and Thomas, Hans, and Julia moved into a house together. Julia suffered extreme PTSD, knowing that she could have been one of Mark's victims that night. Do you think Mark's mental disease had something to do with this? Or was it just the fact that Ulla wanted nothing to do with him? Did the police act right in this situation? Should Mark still have been able to keep his gun license? Comment below, let me know your thoughts, and please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification buttons for my upcoming videos. Thanks for watching.